Oh, $1,800 what I paid for this Canadian. $1,800. Whoa! I've missed something and I'm a complete dummy. 56 Chevy wagon. Man, I've been giving her on this thing. Knock something over. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been in the garage the last couple days. Took a slip and fall in a stupid truck, stupid ice, and old man leg, so I've been taking her easy. But forced myself to get back out here. I've done a bunch of work underneath the car. I've got the exhaust stitched up, the fuel lines are run semi-properly, the fuel tank is in and done. I've dropped the rear end off to get rebuilt. We're going to go 373 positive rear end. I ordered the brakes for it, but they're not going to be here for, well, till next week sometime, but we don't have the rear end, so no big deal there. So the rear end will be fresh as a daisy, and hopefully get that back sooner rather than later. We can measure for a drive shaft, because once the rear end's in, cut a drive shaft, stop the brakes on this thing, it's like a driver, because it was a driver before we completely ripped it apart. Did a little screwing around. Unfortunately, I had to dimple this tube. This is the replacement header, and it is slightly different than the other one. And since we had the motor and transmission all dialed together with the motor mount made and all that, instead of moving the motor and all that screwed around to fit these headers, I just dimpled it, carried on. That was the easy way to do it, a little old school. Now, today is a bit of an expensive episode. We got the Holley Terminator. Now I think this is how I'm gonna mount it. I haven't read the instructions. I've seen some people mount it under the hood. So on a factory Chevy truck, the computer is under the hood. So why can't a Holley be under the hood? On my 57 Chevy, we put it under the dash. It's very tight. You have to run a fairly large loom. I think that's one goes, yeah, all that goes through. Through the firewall, which isn't the end of the world, but you have a big honking wire, which this one obviously didn't have any big holes, so we have to cut that. But honestly, what drives me the craziest about this computer, all these damn lights. And it lights up, I have under the dash, lights up the whole frickin' floor. So what we're gonna do, I have it mounted under the battery tray, which I think should be fine. The battery tray will go on the firewall, like that. And then we can just run our wires directly out into the motor. If there's any, there's going to be extra, we can kind of tuck it behind it or loop it up or put it in the corner or whatever we got to do, but that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Now, before we hook that up, we have to get the motor quasi together. There's no point not doing that. So, I mean, the intake, well, I think I just have one bolt holding it in. I got myself a brand new water pump. It was $64 on Rock Auto. I thought, you know what? Let's put it on there. We'll keep the old one as a spare. Might be just fine, but it didn't look very new. I have a set of valve cover gaskets. We're gonna put new valve cover gaskets on there. Put the coils on. I ordered plug wires, and the question was, did it have square or round coils? I didn't remember, but I was hoping it was round coils, so I bought that. I did get a set of spark plugs for it. So I think what we're gonna do is that. Valve covers on, coils on, intake on, water pump on, and then we'll start hooking up the Holley. We'll get it all wired up. There are some very funny sensors to get to. I believe it's a crank sensor. You basically got to have the starter off to get to it, so the starter is still off. And she's been on there for a few miles. I might be have a spare one in stock of them too. I thought I had one. I might have tossed it on the 57, but those are things that I think I'll put a new alternator and a new starter on this thing at some point, and we'll keep the old water pump, old alternator, old starter tossed in the back of this thing. And if we have any issues, I mean, those are the things you're going to run into, right? They're going to screw up. If the thing yards a rod out of it or something like that, well, a little bit more of a fix, but we can fix those on the side of the road very easily and without a whole lot of time. We have the fuel line run, we have the wiring run for that. I gotta get a relay. There's a lot of little screwing around putsky stuff here to do, but let's make it look like a motor. Get the wiring done, and I got oil, I got a filter, just all this little stuff that you kind of neglect to think about. And it's a real pain when it goes in the budget. Everything costs money. So let's get set up, and we'll bolt this thing down. I think it's ready to go. Okay, so first thing I want to do is actually pull the intake and just make sure before I anchor it all down, I didn't leave any junk in there. What's going on here? Like because I had a bunch of paper towel and, well, you know, it's just kind of be a, you know, Steve Morris engine builder here basically. But what? Stupid LS motors. I'll just drop a socket in it while I'm at it. Let's get this out. Okay. I broke the clip that holds the friggin' fuel line on. Well, that was awesome. We'll go ahead and put that out there so I forget about it. But everything looks good. There's nothing there. So, breaking apart for no reason. Awesome. Okay, well, I'll get this down together. We'll go ahead and do the water pump. Alrighty.
Alrighty then.
So, I got the water pump. Now I am using, this is just a standard replacement truck style water pump, which is kind of, I don't know if they're any different than the car stuff. I know very little about these. I've done this exact setup like 3 times and it's worked, and I am absolutely not the first guy to do it. Now, the gaskets are all O-ringed, but the small block Chevy in me tells me we should probably still put some silicone on it because I have to. So we'll go ahead and get this buzzed on real quick, then we'll do the valve cover gaskets. Man, this thing will be like a motor. So many people will get these things and, I mean, not even wash the crap off of them. So I'm hoping by taking it apart I haven't made it worse. Last time, that big block Chevy, I took it all apart, think, oh, I'll put a camshaft in it, be a genius, and it made it so much worse. But LS motors, you can basically put together garbage parts, apparently. So Kyle Boosted Lifestyle says, actually he spends a bunch of money on stuff, but he likes to go fast. All right, now water pump's on. I put new valve cover gaskets in the valve covers, put them back down. I gotta say, the valve cover gaskets are pretty sweet. they're nice to kind of go together. We got the coils on. I think I may have ordered the wrong plug wires. It asked for round or square, and I thought I had round, but maybe these are square. I don't know. I can't believe it makes a difference, but we'll find out when they don't fit. Now, let's do the Holley, the Terminator. Not sponsored. I paid every frickin' dime for this thing, so what I don't like, I'll let you know, which is actually nothing. This is, obviously I bought it for a reason. Well, other than those damn lights, put a piece of tape on that. So, we have this mounted. This will be upside down, but I don't think that matters. Very, very simple. There's 2 connectors, which I'll show you right away here. I don't know what the hell they do, but they're different sizes, so you can't screw them up. One for vacuum. Now on this LS, there's a little tab. We're going to knock off the intake manifold, run a little line, and this one here is for your power. Now, in this box, which is plain white, they're trying to save you a bunch of money in packaging. It's got all this junk and the instruction manual. Read that. Pretty simple. I put one in Danny's 57 Chevy a couple of years ago, and then I pulled it all apart and put it in my 57 Chevy. Same thing with a 6-liter, which is, again, the same as this. So this here will be your main power wire, which is all kinds of wire. As I recall reading, grounds and power were very important. So you're going to have one power ground right to the battery direct. It is fused, so you're dialed in there. I think then it wants like a 12-volt switched, and there's a couple of grounds that have to go right to the cylinder head. It was very particular about that. It did want, in the instructions, it says to the back of the cylinder head. And what I did is I extended the wires, put it to the front of the cylinder head, because it's a nightmare to get bolts in the back of the cylinder head. I don't know if it actually matters. That's just what it says. It's not as clean looking, I guess, but it has worked. The black car, we did power tour with it, put a bunch of miles on it, and it was having this issue where it's kind of dying and starting, right in the last day, or actually when we were coming home. And I was like, that's weird. And as it turns out, one of the grounds came loose. So it's pretty important, and you don't want to lose that. So you have this big mess of wires. I'll show you that in a second. This here clips into, I don't know what, maybe it's into the computer or something, but this does all your basically extras and stuff. So this kit has a bunch of things where it'll turn things on and off. So fans, it has dual fans, it has a tack, it has a bunch of other things. You can program it to do different things. I believe it has cruise control and all that if you have the drive-by-wire. So that's what this little kind of add-on piece is. You don't actually need this. I believe that it has your O2 sensor, which of course you need to put that in there. I think it's a Bosch unit. Yeah, it's a Bosch name brand thing. It has its little connector, and I think it's got a double connector, maybe? I don't know. But that's that. That's pretty important. These are your injectors. Now on this, because it's a truck motor, it has the I want to say EV1 or 2. I don't know what they really are. But basically, the injectors are all the same. It's kind of irrelevant. I'm sure they have different variations of what they put through for fuel, but all we care about in this situation is the clip, and I believe these are the correct ones. And I think you click it in and it'll tell you what's what. I don't actually know. Oh yeah, no. Oh, it says right on there. Cylinder 5, cylinder 7. So there you go. You can't really screw this up. This would be your version of putting a distributor in 180 out, if you do it like that. So that's that. In here you have your little digital screen thing, which is pretty cool. If I can get it out. So I'm sure you've all seen that over the internet. It tells you whatever it is. That's how you're going to program it, all that sort of stuff. So this is the intimidating part that everyone's kind of scared of. And I don't blame you. The first time I did it, I was kind of like, holy moly. But either I've gotten smarter or dumber and I care less now. Let's be honest, it's probably the latter. We'll take this out. As I recall, it was all labeled. Now the nice thing about LS's, and I don't know, I assume all new stuff is like this if you're doing a Holley switchover kit, but it's very simple because the connectors are all different, so they only kind of go to one thing. With that being said, IAC is that one, TPS is that one, so these will be going chunk chunk right there. This one, CTS, I don't know what the hell that means, MAT. Okay, so that's your intake kind of stuff like that. Now that one, we don't have a sensor for, so what I did is I bought, hopefully it's the correct one. Ugh, I'll plug it in right now so I don't forget it. I bought this out of like a 2000s Cavalier, which should work. Yeah, so that we'll have to put in the intake, but for right now we're just gonna hang out for when we start it in the, whether it's this video or next video. Oh, this is probably, because it's all insulated, that'll be going to your O2. And then this is the kind of mess of it. These, oh, there's your two big connectors to your or to your computer. And then I believe in here there's going to be some grounds, some switch 12 that'll have to be taken care of. And here's your little to the computer, or the screen I should say, sorry. And that's it. I mean, it is a little daunting, no bones about it. Oh, this is the piece, it's got a connector, a closed connector on it. You take that off and that's how you can wire up the rest of your stuff. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and well, I'll get this laid out and I'll come back and I'll kind of show you what I'm going to do. Oh no, this is actually the crank sensor. I was way off. I'll probably hook up everything underneath real quick. The crank sensor is a pain to get to. You want to have it laid out so it's nice. Nothing's going to bind. Nothing touches exhaust. Nothing touches anything that spins. If you get that dialed together, you should be fine. Once we get it all kind of hanging, I'll put the starter back up, make sure everything's dialed together underneath, and we'll get it back together up top. So I'll see you shortly. Oh, $1,800 is what I paid for this Canadian. $1,800. It's a lot of money. Prepare yourself for it. I stand corrected on a couple of items. Upon further instructioning, you'd think after the fuel tank fiasco I would have read the instructions, but anyways, pretty simple. We got everything clipped together for the most part on the motor. We don't have the injectors dialed together. I did some reading. Those grounds are important to the cylinder heads. That grounds the coils. So you have to have that taken care of, just if anyone's wondering why. Now these, I kind of undid a little bit. I thought some of those other things were needed for the tack, but that's actually all here. So these wires right here, the green wire is to run a fuel pump. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a trigger to the relay. It recommends this does up to 15 amps. I don't know what that pump in there is. You might be able to get away with it, but for me, I have a 12 gauge wire running up to the firewall. I'm just going to run a relay and use this as the trigger. This 12 volt is constant. I assume that's to the computer. And this one here, I believe, is the tack wire. Optional. Blue with white stripe, yes. That's that. Now on this side, we have a ground, and this is your 12 volt switched. Probably will fire up the computer. The other one keeps the constant power, keeps the tune and all that in it. And then those will go into your computer. And then everything else we have kind of hooked up. Like I said, it all kind of goes together. This is fuel pressure, which this thing doesn't have, and the other one didn't either. I got to figure that out maybe. These, there's no return on this, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know if it's worth trying to put one in. The 57 always just has no fuel pressure. It just says error, so it's probably fine. Those connect in, coolant. This here says ignition odd and ignition even, so we have that all hooked up. And then along the back side, you know, a small block Chevy where the oil pressure is, same thing on an LS, and right beside it is, in this situation, the cam sensor. I think on the later generation they're in the front, but you don't quote me on that. And all we have left underneath, crank and O2. Then we'll hook up the injectors. So really pretty simple. I don't know how much more I'll get done tonight, simply because I don't have a relay and I want to do the fuel pump. This kit, oh, by the way, does not include any sort of charging system. So if you're doing an LS swap like this, you have to make sure you have a charging system, obviously the starting, all that sort of stuff. This will just control the motor and the fuel enemy transmission if you pay even more money for the transmission controller. But just bear in mind, you're going to have to make sure you have all that other wiring done in the car. This is just for the motor. So it's an expensive little computer, but well, I bought it twice. So it is in fact the next day. And I got a bunch of parts and a bunch of stuff to kind of put this thing all together. And everything's just kind of snowballing out of control for time. And I thought to myself, you know, I want to hear this thing run. I feel like that's where this video should go. In the mail today, I just got the throttle pedal, so I could put that in there. So all these little things which are gonna slowly but surely push me back. I don't have the radiator, don't have any hoses, don't have any of that stuff. I went and got a bunch of electrical connectors. So my plan is battery there. I put in a fuse block there. I'm gonna use that fuse block. So that's gonna run a couple of relays for a fuel pump and probably fans. And yeah, so, but if we get all that done, we get the throttle pedal done, either the video is going to be forever long, or we hotwire this thing and make it run. So obviously we're going to run with no coolant, just to kind of hear it burble. So we got to put oil in, filter on. I got the battery tray set up where I want it. I had to tilt it a little bit. It looks goofy or not, to clear the coils. But I have plug wires. We'll do that. We can get to everything very easily. Just plug all that in. We got to ground the coils real quick. Obviously we have no throttle cables. There's a few things like that we kind of got to go through, but get it all together. We have the fuel line. I ran it really funny. On the 57, I ran it behind the motor, but then it has to run the floorboard, which I didn't really like. This way it stays on the frame rail, and I didn't want it to hug the headers. So we're going to go up around the steering and kind of in that way. It's a bit goofy, and it looks really goofy right now because it's not secured in any way. But this will give really good tie points, so it's not going to go anywhere. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's just what I want. And then we can secure it all, and we have a little bit of room, so if we ever want to do anything or move anything or change intakes or anything down the road, we have the line there. we're taken care of. So I'm going to slap the battery in here. I'm going to connect the grounds, a few little things like that, and then we'll connect the Holley system. I got the starter in it. I got to run a starter wire, and I believe one of these wires, this one here, is what's going to control the whole car. This powers up the fuse block. So if we get the fuse block powered up, we get the trigger wire, which is, I'm going to say this one, to the starter. I'll have to peel that back, but I think that's probably it. We should be good. Then we shall bump this thing over. Then it's a matter of powering up the Holley, making sure we have fuel. Oh, I don't need gas. Shoot. Well, we hear the pump make noise. I can run out and get gas. We get to that point, and then here it go, burble. We got no throttle cable, no cooling system, but at least it'll run. That's the goal for tonight. We got a tall order in a short amount of time. So we do a little bit of wiring. Bear in mind, everything is just test wiring because I want to make sure everything's going to be good before I point the camera myself, before I go crazy. So we have the starter bridged in. I ran a wire just to that fuse block, which again, this will all be shortened up, made nice. I mean, it's vice script for crying out loud. We have the fuel pump to a relay. This will be our trigger. This is from the ECU. Yeah, so everything's hooked up underneath. The only thing I have to do is connect the O2, and I got to get a couple of short bolts for the cylinder heads. And then I think we could hook up the Holley. We'll just double check a couple of things. I made a little jumper wire. Oh, this is going to be tricky with only one hand, but oh, maybe I can do it. I heard that or not, but the fuel pump kicks, so that's good. We got to put fuel in it. This battery, I'm pretty sure I had to boost this thing and get it in the garage, but now it does, she crank. So that's a bonus. So at this point now, if the motor rolls over, that's essentially all it has to do mechanically. The ECU will take care of everything else as long as the fuel pump is good. So Danny ordered dinner. I'm gonna have some supper real quick, then we're gonna come back, fresh mind. We got to do ground the coils, hook up the ECU. I'll show you how I'm going to do all that. I'm going to put some fuel in the thing. We're going to test that for leaks because I'd like to find that out before we start it. Then essentially we should be able to go through the programming real quick on the Holley. I'll show you how to do that. Yeah, and this thing should burble to life and idle for 8 seconds until we shut it off and I go to bed because I'm tired. It's late. This thing's beating me. Well, we just tested out the fuel system, had a couple of leaks, but we got it all dialed together. Now I got some hokey poke wiring on this thing, but this should just go to show that any idiot can put a Terminator X system together. Yowza. So we got everything just kind of quick connected to that. It's all good. There's some switch 12 volt stuff I tied into where the coil would have been originally. This is, like I said, I extended the ground. So we're just going to try and see if this thing will bark. I'll go through the setup procedure real quick. It's very simple as I remember. I think there's a few things I have to look up, like what injectors and stuff like that it had. So there may be a little bit of screwing around, but ultimately we're just going to get it bark, make sure it has oil pressure, and we should be good. It's got oil in it, filters on. Oh, you know what I'm missing? Should probably put some plug wires on. So I'm going to put some plug wires on. I'm going to hook up the computer to control the fuel pump. I just jumpered it before, and we should be back going through the Holley. Just that easy. All right, so we'll see what happens. We may have to do, I might jump around a little bit depending on how this programming goes and my level of knowledge. Perform a TPS auto set. Okay, let's do that. You would have thought, oh, TPS auto set. Make sure ignition is on, engine is not started. Start. Slowly press pedal to floor and release. Do this twice. Well, we'll say we're doing it twice. Hopefully this all works out. It's all brand new junk. Auto set was successful. Perfect. So, I always thought there was a just a setup thing. It made you go right in, but I have to do a little figuring here. System. Engine setup, there we go. Engine displacement. Read error, okay. Oh, Terminator X up. You know, maybe I should just get the instructions. The old setup wizard. I clicked a bunch of wrong buttons. So anyways, all it's asked so far is what this thing is. So 6-liter LS. You know, we'll give it like a 700 something idle speed. Next. Camshaft. Huh. Below 235. I guess we'll just leave it there. 24 tooth. Fuel pressure. Huh. Fuel pressure. What the hell are we going to put there? We'll do 60 psi. I think that's what it is. Injectors. OEM. Oh, yeah. It asks for the OEM number. This is where I'm going to Google it. Okay. I guess we'll just see what happens. Flash her up to life. Go from there. Whoops. Did the pump go in here? Let's see what earmuffs. Yeah. All right, here we go. Okay. So it shot up to 3,800 RPM. Did have oil pressure. Why would it do that? Vacuum leak? What the hell? Did I somehow misconnect something? Okay, well, it runs, has fuel pressure, obviously does its thing, but I don't know how it could crank to 4,000 RPM with the intake closed unless I have a vacuum leak, which may be possible. Motor was quiet, didn't make any noise. When instantly fire, instantly 4,000 RPM, that's where I'm leaving it. It runs. This is all cobbled together at this point. I mean, for all I know, I've done something funny with the wiring, maybe. I don't even know, but there's only so many band-aids you can put on the thing. It sounds actually pretty quiet, 4,000 RPM. It wasn't blowing my eardrums out. It does run. We still got to hook up the transmission. We got cooler lines. We're waiting on that rear end parts. So hopefully the rear end I'll have back, well, be a couple of videos, I'm sure. I might have to get back to the Sebring for a little bit. The Healy, but because once you get the rear end in, we can measure for drive shaft, do all those sort of things. But I might monkey around with this a little bit and see what the deal is, or maybe do a little research if I've somehow screwed something up. Sure sounds like a vacuum leak, but I don't know what I would have touched other than that that intake there. I wonder if maybe that's the problem somehow, that throttle body. Well, if you guys have any ideas, feel free to let me know. That's all tight in the comment section. Oh, that did not go as planned. Immediate to redline fire up. It's like zip ties and bias plies in here. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. As always, for supporting the channel. If you wouldn't mind liking the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe. It makes a world of difference for me. It costs nothing, and it helps grow the channel so I can waste more money. Huh, the motor's not grounded. I didn't do that. Do you think that's the problem? Huh. Hang on. I hooked the ground up, but it did nothing. So I'm going to double check everything tomorrow, because this thing is one ultimate fail as per usual, but we'll get it figured out. We can't be beaten. Wonder what I could have done wrong there. I'm going to clean all the wiring up. Step one, make sure it's all connected how I want, mounted how I want, put stuff inside the car, and we'll go from there. Honestly, Probably should just at least hang a radiator or something on it so it'll have some coolant flowing through it. I do have just a universal kind of junk one, so maybe I'll hang that on there. And we'll go from there. The other thing is this battery was weak. I had to boost it. I know these things don't like when they don't have like a full 12 volts. That could be part of it. Or I've missed something and I'm a complete dummy. See you in the next one.